So welcome to AVK. Here's a photo of our factory that's located in Minden, Nevada. Everything we do is manufactured in this ISO 9001, 14001 certified facility. ISO 9001 is a quality improvement process certification to make sure that we're up to date on continuing to improve our quality assurance. And then 14001 is a standard related to environmental management. To help organizations minimize how their operations, affect the environment. Besides our Minden location, we have two more distribution centers, one in Omaha, Nebraska, and one in Nashville, Tennessee. This allows for delivery of in-stock products to anywhere in the United States within 24 to 48 hours, and an average of 6-day delivery for those items that need to be manufactured. So here you can see our Series 55 large diameter gate valve selection. And as we get into this, we'll go over each of these different situations. Now, a gate valve are one of the most common valves used in water distribution systems. They're suitable for both above ground and below ground installation. These valves are used for on-off service and are installed in pipelines as isolating valves. A gate valve should not be used as regulating valves. It should either be all the way open or all the way closed. Now, the stem on the gate valve has to turn multiple times to go from an open to a closed position. This slow operation prevents water hammer effects that can be caused by a quick closing valve. This also means that if you need a valve to open fast or close quickly in emergency conditions or to control flow, a gate valve is not your best choice because, again, gate valve should not be used to control flow. They're most often used when minimum pressure loss and a full bore is needed. Now, when fully open, a typical gate valve has no obstruction in the flow path, resulting in a very low head loss. And this design also makes it possible to use a pipe cleaning pig, as you can see in the photo. These gate valves are cast with ductile iron and designed to meet the requirements of AWWA C515. And there's two types of gate valves, the OS&Y, meaning outside screw and yoke, which you can see on the left side of the screen there, and then NRS, meaning non-rising stem, on the right-hand side of the valve. And obviously, we're happy to provide both options. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the Series 55 bodies and bonnets are made from ductile iron. The gland flange, wrench nut, and wedge core are also made of ductile iron. The standard bolting is 316 stainless steel, and these valves are fusion bonded epoxy coated to a C550 standard. Now, the standard stem on the 30 and 36-inch valve is made of 431 stainless steel and 430F stainless steel on the 18 through 24-inch valve. When equipped with our standard 430 series stainless steel stems and an EPDM wedge, these gate valves are NSF 61 and NSF 372 approved. So we seat test these at a rated working pressure of 250 PSI to start with. They're then shell tested to twice that at 500 PSI. And although this valve is rated for a working pressure to 250 PSI, most waterworks applications like your city main or rural water systems, those typically operate between 50 and 80 PSI. So in addition to the pressure test at high levels, we do an additional seat test with this valve at 30 PSI to ensure that the valve maintains a leak tight seal at low pressures as well. So we'll talk about the testing process itself. First, the gate valve is open and the valve is filled with water to eliminate any air. The gate is closed and one side is pressurized to the desired testing PSI, which, as we talked about, for the low pressure is 30 PSI, and it's checked for leaks at that low pressure. Then the valve is cycled, opened, and closed, and it's tested at 30 PSI in the opposite direction. That process is performed again at the 250 psi, and to pass these leak tests, there must be no leakage at high or low pressures. Finally, the valve is opened and then subjected to a 500 psi shell test. To pass this test, no leakage through the valve shell or sealed surfaces is allowed. So if anyone would be concerned about the valves leaking from the stems, gaskets, or bolts, this will put your mind at ease that every single one of our valves is thoroughly tested with water at the factory before shipment. The standard wedge is an EPDM rubber with a ductile iron core. It is resistant to sunlight, ozone, chlorine, chloramines, and other oxidizers, and it's also resistant to rubber set, tearing, and cuts, as well as it does not impart any rubber taste or odor to the water. Now, the optional coating on these wedges is NBR. NBR stands for nitrile butadiene rubber and is sometimes referred to as Buna-N or simply nitrile. NBR is not intended for use in a drinking water system, as it can impart that rubber taste into the water. However, it is resistant to mild acids, petroleum-based oils, greases, hydrocarbons, and organic compounds that can sometimes be found in wastewater. Just like EPDM, it does have good resistance to rubber set, tearing, and cuts, but it's not resistant to long-term exposure to sunlight or ozone, and it does not stand up well to disinfectants. So here at AVK, we strive to provide solutions. So when you guys are looking at needing a Series 55, be sure to just get with your territory manager. We'll help you as best we can and help you determine what rubber is best suited for you in the application that your valve is going into. Now, the bronze wedge nut is located at the top of the ductile iron core of the wedge. The surrounding ductile iron does not allow for deformation of the bronze under heavy compression loads, such as over-torquing the valve in the closed direction. This allows it to withstand much higher closing torques than are required by the AWWA C515. The bonnet gasket on our gate valves is an O-ring type gasket that wraps around each bonnet bolt. So for any of you car gurus, imagine the head gasket on your engine block. This design not only provides an excellent high pressure seal against leaks, but also protects each bonnet bolt from the corrosive effects of water from inside or outside of the valve. The NBR and EPDM gaskets are resistant to rubber set, which means that after use, the gasket will return to its original shape and thickness. The position of the gasket is maintained under pressure by the bonnet bolts and a groove that is cast into the underside of the bonnet. The standard rubber material for the gasket is NBR to resist permeation from organic compounds in your surrounding soil. However, EPDM is an option for that gasket as well. So then we're going to show an animation where you're going to be able to see how that gasket, the bolts actually go through it and how it sits in that recess. And so here you can see, we'll get into the glue and the hot melt that sits on top of the bolts, which you can see there. And then as this explodes out, you can then see the gasket. You can somewhat see the recess and you'll be able to see it closer once it goes in there. And then watch as it goes back together and you can see where each bolt is surrounded by the gasket as well as completely encapsulated inside the body of the valve and the bonnet. And so your bolts will never see anything exposed outside of that valve. Any corrosive soils or corrosive materials in your soil, your bolts and your gasket for that matter just are never going to see them. And so you can see as it goes back together, completely encapsulated inside your valve. So now looking at that bolting that we just talked about, again, your standard bolting is a 316 stainless steel. The bonnet bolts are a hexagon-shaped socket head that require an Allen wrench to install and remove. They're threaded into that tapped hole that's been drilled into the valve body. So traditionally, you may see nuts and bolts holding a bonnet and its valve body together. But with our valves, it's just the bolt threaded into that tapped hole. So you don't have those exposed bolts in your soil. The head of each bonnet bolt is sunk into the recess that's cast into the top outer edge of the bonnet. After the bolts have been installed and tightened, a hot glue is applied over each bolt head to further protect the head of the bonnet from corrosion and soil. This design completely isolates the bonnet bolts from any contact with water from inside or outside of the valve. So if in many years from now the valve is dug up or disassembled, the bonnet bolts are still going to look brand new. A mounting flange along with a keyed stem are standard equipment on all Series 55 gate valves so that a gearbox or electric actuator may be easily installed, and both the mounting flange and the stem are standard dimensions. Looking at end connections, the Series 55 bodies are available in flange by flange, MJ by MJ, and MJ by flange connections. The flange by flange valves comply with the bolting patterns for Class 150 flange standards, and these flanges are flat-faced with no raised sealing surfaces. For the MJ by MJ, the product range is from 18 to 24 and a 30 and 36. And as you can see, the waterway is either nominal or oversized based on the size. So now we'll look at bypass systems and their purpose. What is a bypass system? Why do people use them? Why do we supply them? The primary purpose is to open a smaller valve to equalize the pressure on both sides of the larger valve before opening, which makes it easier to open the large valve. It can also be used to control the filling rate of a dry pipeline downstream of the large gate valve. The slow filling allows enough time for air to escape from the dry pipeline to reduce the chance of damage to the pipeline that can be caused by filling it too fast. That smaller valve used is typically either a Series 45 or a Series 65. We do have the size patterns for, if you're using an 18 through 20 inch, it's a 3-inch bypass, or 24 is a 4-inch, and 30 and 36 is 6-inch bypasses. So if you guys ever have questions on, I got this size valve, I need this size or this size bypass, again, reach out to your territory managers. And we'll be able to walk you through that process as well. Now on the 18 through 24-inch flange by flange valves, they meet the requirements of the ASME standard for lay length. However, the short lay length specified in the ASME standard does not allow enough room between the wedge cavity and the end flanges of the body to include integral bypass ports. So we developed spools that can be bolted to a Series 55 pipe flanges to enable a bypass around that Series 55 valve. The optional bypass can be installed by us, or it can be ordered from us as a kit. Now that kit consists of 2 bypass spools that can be bolted to the flange, resulting in a flange by flange or an MJ by flange or an MJ by MJ configuration. And it includes bypass elbows, the gate valve, the MJ gasket kits for the small valve, and all required gaskets and hardware. Now, since the lay length of all manufacturers, flange by flange gate valves up to 24 inches, that's dictated by the ASME standard. This bypass kit will fit any manufacturer's 18 through 24 inch flange by flange gate valve. Now the lay length of the 30-inch and 36-inch valve is not dictated by any standard. So the lay length of these valves varies by manufacturer, which makes it impossible to create a universal bypass kit. Therefore, we developed the 30 and 36-inch valves with integral bypass ports. These bypass ports can be blanked off or machined to mounting, or machined to mount an optional bypass system. The optional bypass system for these large valves is only available installed by us. We also do want to make an important note then for anybody who is ordering bypasses. Once you get them in the field, before you install them, we want to remind you to retorque those flange bolts between your bypass kit and your bypass valve to make sure that those are tight and prepared to go on the ground. And if you need a 30-inch valve with a bypass system, the 30-inch flange by flange is available in a shorter lay length without the bypass ports. So these Series 55 carry a 10-year warranty. And you can see here a photo. We did a triple bypass system for this guy. He just wanted to make sure that if anything ever failed, he was going to be able to, he would still have 2 more backups to make sure that he could turn that system off. So we're very happy to provide unique situations for unique requests to customers as they come across our desk. From that, again, as we've talked about in the past, we have an incredible website with just incredible content for you guys as end users or distributors to have further information on the Series 55 specifically, which Ann is actually putting in the handout section right now. So if you guys see that pop up, feel free to just click the download and you'll have the brochure and you'll have the data sheet or the spec for engineers that may need to see those, as well as our website offers an AVK certified course that allows you guys to learn very similar courses that we take as managers on updates on products and not just our products, but Waterworks products in general and how they go into systems and how they interact with everyone's system. So again, here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions, or customer service as well, or your local territory manager.